The one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church is the church that is united to Peter and to Peter's successors. As the church father St. Jerome said in a letter to Pope Damasus, "As I follow no leader save Christ, so I communicate with none but your blessedness, that is, with the chair of Peter. For this, I know, is the rock on which the church is built." Unfortunately, many schismatic groups that do not recognize the authority of the Pope, or are not united to the ecclesial body of the church, have chosen to use the name Catholic when identifying themselves, which can create confusion for lay Christians in the Catholic Church who are not familiar with these breakaway churches, and might mistakenly believe that they are simply a different rite within the one Roman Church, even when they are not. One such group that identifies as Catholic is the Old Catholics. The earliest instantiation of what is today called the Old Catholic movement began in the Netherlands in the 1700s, when the Dutch people's quarrel with Rome over proper procedure and their infatuation with the heresy of Jansenism boiled over into outright schism when the Pope deposed their bishop Petrus. But some of those in the Netherlands continued to follow the old bishop, and even to create more illicit bishops of their own. Fast forwarding to the late 1800s, a group of priests and laity in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland rejected the formalization of papal infallibility at the First Vatican Council, and for good measure, they retroactively threw out the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception, which had been declared some 15 years earlier, but which they considered to be an innovation. These new schismatics rallied around Ignaz von Dollinger, an excommunicated priest, but as they had no bishops of their own, they realized that their movement would die out without stealing some sacramental grace for themselves, and rather than let themselves die out, they chose to ensnare future generations from the church by contacting the Netherlands Schism, the Church of Utrecht, and borrowing the Dutch bishops to make some of their own, thus forming what would eventually be the Union of Utrecht, formed as a union intent on staying close to the true church against its perceived corruption. The reality of the Old Catholic movement is that over time, the Old Catholics have become secularized like any Protestant sect, eventually relaxing disciplines on married clergy and the ordination of women, as well as forming cross-church communion with the Anglicans, whose ordinations are not only illicit, but altogether invalid. As with any schism, it leads to more schism, and the Union of Utrecht eventually spawned more breakaway movements, such as the Polish National Catholic Church, who, again, are not Catholic at all, but just more Old Catholic schismatics, but with a more conservative bent. Though there are even more depths to explore when talking about schisms within the Old Catholics, it's sufficient to know that they exist and that they often adopt the name Catholic. On a practical note, when looking for somewhere to go to Mass that you are unfamiliar with, it is worth double-checking their website to see where they stand with regard to their allegiance to Rome, checking the narthex for a picture of the Pope, or, if nothing else, listening for the Pope's name to be spoken at Mass, which is common to both Western and Eastern authentic churches.